Hey everyone, welcome back to the Scott Stokely podcast. I have a guest on tonight that now I don't want to give him a big head or anything, but after I took 13 years off and I came back to the sport, I was lucky to connect with a lot of the top players out there. I was very surprised and pleased with how much respect I was shown. And I mean, everyone was so cool to me and so kind to me when I came back. But the person I probably connected with the most is just one of my closest friends in the world, and I won't even talk about him anymore. I'll just bring him on. Jeremy Koling.
Scott Stokely, it is a pleasure to be on your show, and I must say, right from the beginning, it is no surprise that in my introduction, you made it 73% about you and 23%, 27% about me, and I wouldn't like it any other way. Honestly, it is. you, you and I are brothers from another mother, and I will never forget the day I met you, and uh, and I'm so happy that you got back into the sport of disc golf because the culture needed someone like you to shake things up.
I appreciate that. So, well, let's start with tell me about the day you met me. I, I remember what you said to me, but I want to see if you remember what you said to me.
Yeah, well, okay. So what I remember from that day was it was Halloween day, and we were playing the Flying Eye Open in Georgia at the Crucible, a temporary course, and I believe you came on a day where I competed quite well, so I was already kind of in a even more chipper mood than I normally would be. But there was some rumors that Scott Stokely was meandering around, and it was just like one of those things. Is like, why the hell would Scott Stokely be in Georgia right now? He's from Colorado. Like, why of all tournaments, this is just a random A tier. I cannot figure out why this man is here right now. But if he is, I would absolutely love to meet him because one of the really cool things about the sport of disc golf is that it's still so young, it's still so new in the grand scheme of things, that we've had the opportunity, players who have been around the sport for 15, 20 years, to essentially meet all of the legends that have come before us, all the pioneers, the movers and shakers. And I would say thus far in my career, there's there are two people who I have not gotten to meet: PDJ number one and PDJ number two. Ed Hedrick and Victor Malafronte. Those are two guys that I still would love to meet. I mean, obviously, Ed Hedrick,
Mhm.
that can happen, but Victor is still around. But like the other person before I even wanted to meet those guys was Stokely. Coming up in the sport, I had so many people compare our games, big backhand Spike Heiser kind of guy, like, but predominantly forehand game in a world of backhand guys. And I just remember thinking like this is a great opportunity to meet this one last legend on my checklist of people that I've just heard nothing but rave reviews about and how he's a wild character, so on and so forth. Um, and so yeah, I just remember that being a day that was like a really cool opportunity. I finally got to meet the wild character that is Scott Stokely. What do you remember from that day?
I I remember the first thing you said to me
Oh boy, this is going
when
to
you
be
came up to me.
exaggerated.
No, I remember this because one of the things that was so important to me coming back was I was shocked that anybody even remembered me or remembered anything about the things I had done. And you came up to me and the first words out of your mouth were, go, hey, I'm Jeremy Koling. I'm the second guy to throw over the pond at the USDGC sidearm. And
Yes.
the
Okay.
reason
Yeah,
meant
I remember
much
that.
because then I realized, wow, people must have been talking about that after I was gone
Yeah.
for that to be a thing. And I was like just incredibly flattered. But then I also met Sexton and a bunch of other
Yeah, he
people.
he was there that weekend. There was some good players there that weekend. That was a surprising tournament. That was, I mean, a having Stokely show up randomly, dress up like, I don't think we mentioned this. It was Halloween. You were dressed up, fully dressed up like a zombie, or was it Frankenstein? I
No,
think it was a zombie.
it was a zombie.
Yeah, and I was just like, the way I'm meeting Scott Stokely is in full makeup, fully dressed up too. I mean, like, it wasn't just like the face, like you had the clothes on and everything. Like, and I guess if anybody really truly knows you and your character, you just putting makeup on would have been the most half-assed Stokely thing of all time. So it really was your true nature right from the beginning, which was kind of great. Um, but yeah, that was a good opportunity to meet some of the people that were heavily invested in the game, both in media stuff. Actually, at that point, I was not a part of commentary, so that was, you met me before any of the Joe Mess stuff started. I didn't start doing that until I joined Innova. But you definitely were meeting some future media personalities with Nate Sexton and myself. But I remember, like, it was just like one of those situations where, in a way, it was kind of similar to when Cam Todd came back, because Cam Todd was from, the Charlotte area, and here was this legend that played for Discraft, who the company I was sponsored by at the time when I met him. I was putting with Cam Todd Challengers, and yet I never met the guy. He's a former
Mhm.
world champion, like former superstar, and this guy doesn't play anymore. And like, I didn't play a casual round from him. I never met him, and then one day, boom, he's back. And so it was kind of like that same moment again with you, Stokely, and it was pretty cool. I don't know where I was going with that,
Yeah.
but uh, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I got derailed there.
No, and that's fine. Yeah. So my first PDJ tournament back on tour was the tournament in Athens, which you won.
Hmm.
And then you came up to me and you're like, hey, there's a tournament in Rocky Mount next week
Wait. You played that tournament?
in Athens.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone had to take last place money.
Hold on a second. You were in that event. You were playing in that event,
Yes.
dressed up like a zombie. Oh my gosh. I did not
I
know that.
would
I thought,
never, who in their right mind would play a PDJ tournament on October 31st not dressed in like a zombie? I don't
that's a great question. Actually, to 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 to
know.
back that up, I don't know if it's within arm's reach, but um, this year on November 1st, I wore a plush cheer bear onesie, which cheer bear is the pink bear, and it's got a big rainbow across the chest.
Well, duh.
Um, oh well, maybe some of these people aren't Care Bear savvy. Okay, so
No way.
I wanted to clarify that it was the pink one, and it was two sizes too small for me. But I wore it, man. I kind of joked around because my play was so bad in the first two rounds. I was like, this is what I deserve, and I didn't have the guts to wear it on actual Halloween, but I wore it the day after I realized that you don't deserve to wear a normal professional outfit. So um, I didn't have the same guts you had, but that it kind of reminded me when you said that you played that event, that is exactly what the point I was going. When I met you, I was like, dude, I'm gonna call Chuck Connolly and see if you can play the A tier that's going on next weekend in Rocky Mount, which you were very excited about, which Chuck Connolly said, yes, I can do. But also, that kind of, by you going to that tournament, that kind of sent your life in a different path for a few years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, yeah. Well,
Indirectly.
no, I was out in North Carolina. I was going to be staying with Barry and
Okay.
Brian out at the country course, but part of what was necessary for me was the way I was treated when I came back, because I came, my story. I had some problems for a few years where I was, depression and all sorts of things. And then the way the sport and the people in it treated me when I came back is what got me out of all this. So when I went to Rocky Mount, oh, well, they're full. Well, hold on, Scott wants to come. Oh, we'll figure out how to get you in. It was just a level of being treated in a way that made me feel important at a time when I needed to feel that way about myself. So absolutely. Well, and the best part was I got to hang out at Schleberger's house with,
Whoa.
Paul, it was probably like 6 of the top 7 players in the world were there or something. Like it was maybe not that, but it was some high level golfers there, which you won that one also. You won both those tournaments.
Did I win there? No, I lost to Nate Sexton in a playoff in that one.
Are
I
you sure?
think. I don't know. That was 2014, and that was a year I was kind of cooking. That was one of my best seasons professionally. Um, so I may have won. I don't honestly don't remember. I do. I want to ask you: did you and Schwebby have a friendship before you left the game?
Yeah.
Did
Not
you
that
even know who he was? Like
I
you hadn't even.
think so.
Okay, so that was a brand new thing, and oh my gosh, Scott Stokely and Brian Schweberger, same place, same time.
Yeah. I love Schwebby. Well, so the thing that I like
That's a
about the thing I like about the way you play is that the way you play, it reminds me of how I played, which is you can be light and fun and goofy and not take yourself too seriously. But if anybody for a second thinks that you're not training your ass off, that you don't want to win, like of course you are. Like you don't get to that level without working at it. But
Mhm,
people misunderstand it and think that
mhm.
you're just kind of being goofy. But in reality, it's just that's your personality. If you try to
Yeah,
be a different person, you play worse.
there's not just one way to do it. I mean,
No.
there there's a lot of similarities with the greats in any sport, and I don't mean just like people that are going to be like great for that time period. I'm talking about like the greats, right? These guys are on a different level, and the psychology of understanding what's going on them is like $1 billion industry because they're trying to figure out what made Tiger Woods, and LeBron, and MJ, and Gretzky, and Kelly Slater, and Ken Klima, and all these people who like dominated. Those people have a different mentality, and I knew from the beginning, that was not me. I'm not the kind of person to go after those kind of accolades for the sole purpose of being the best. I wanted to enjoy disc golf and leave a legacy of being a person that was able to be taken seriously for his game, but also somebody that you can relate to and understand that I'm a professional disc golfer. This is very important to me. But if I don't have a sense of humor about the ridiculousness of throwing circles towards little catchy things professionally, then
Right.
like I'm losing the point of why I got started in the first place. I enjoy this because it gives me life. And it doesn't give me life because I can pay for gas to get to the next place and eat food and so on and so forth. It gives me life because of the culture, because of the people within it. And if I don't treat those people right, then I'm not treating myself right. So that's objective number one from the very beginning. And I actually, I take people like Brian Schweberger, like Scott Stokely, like Michael Johansson, people that I can observe from that have done it in a way that I think is respectable. You've pushed the boundaries on some things in the past, but you do it in a way that is like when people see the purpose behind it, then they're like, okay, like I might not agree with Scott Stokely's methods, but in the end, this guy is a good-hearted human being who is looking out for sharing that love of this thing with others. And that's what I want. And I for you to recognize that, really, it means a lot to me.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I say we're playing with frisbees in the park, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you
That's
would have actually fit into the old school frisbee player. Like you would have actually had a blast in the 80s.
well,
With
I mean,
the
let's
old
let's 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 look at what frisbee comes from. I mean, frisbee comes from a different culture before our time when we're talking about like the frisbee era. But frisbee when I was growing up was a was a multi-purpose item. I grew up in the Rainbow family. I was a part of the Rainbow Gathering because my mother was a part of the Rainbow Gathering. So I traveled around the region with hippies, and a frisbee, when you turn it upside down, becomes a good plate for dinner. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Obviously we're not using discs as dinner plates, but like a frisbee, an actual lid,
You
you
know?
know, well, I haven't yet. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's like I was I was nurtured into that frisbee lifestyle as a child. Maybe not with the competitive lifestyle that you were familiar with like the whole overall stuff, but like
Right.
I come from that era. I come from the grassroots style of what frisbee represents.
Right.
At least I think I do.
No, you do. And it's funny because a lot of that hippie lifestyle you did not take with you because you were
No.
exposed to things that you didn't want to be a part of.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, I think like I rebelled against it a lot when I was in my like teenage years, in my 20s. Like it wasn't that I like hated it, it just wasn't for me, you know? Like I saw it, I grew up with it. You know, I was a rainbow child, if you will. Like that's just where I came from. My photo albums of me as a child are like mostly naked because like people at rainbow gatherings, it's clothing optional. And like I didn't always necessarily feel comfortable that way. It just was like that was my environment. And so you know, that was something that I didn't need in my teenage and 20s. And now when I look back, it's like a lot of the things that I can like I can understand a lot more about myself when I don't like have to push back against it, and I kind of accept the fact that it's just where I come from. And so like I understand that I have a little bit more go with the flow nature that kind of comes from that
Mhm.
environment. And but also, you know, like I'm really interested in being a part of nature and being out in nature, which is where, you know, maybe my love for being outside and playing disc golf in the parks comes from. And just the simple beauty of watching a frisbee fly, just watching something glide towards a destination, towards a target.
Mm. All right, so I want to. We're going to be all over the place, but let's talk the first specifics about throwing. And most of what we're going to talk about isn't going to be about the game because there's far more interesting things to talk about than that.
Okay.
But there's the part of your game that I had never seen anybody do like you, and that was you drove with putters and mid-range discs. Now,
Mm.
I did what I mean. That was part. I always said there's no such thing as a sidearm disc any more than there's a backhand disc.
Hmm.
But I would favor those discs just because I controlled them better. You were the first
Sure.
person where you actually could take a buzz at the time, I think,
Yeah.
2000,
Yeah, probably.
or the equivalent, whatever disc equivalent. There was Prodigy and Innova, right?
Right.
What do you do to throw a mid-range disc sidearm? Because you're supposed to throw every disc both ways, but it's
Right.
harder.
I was just doing a lesson today actually, and the guy was saying like, well, these ones aren't sidearm discs, and you know, like, well, let's break
All
this thing
right.
down, because we say that there's two things that a disc has, but really it's like two and a very important half, I think. So it's like almost three things. We've got a speed, B, a stability. Those are the two main components of a disc. So once you figure out the speed and stability of a disc, you can make it work for you. But the very important third part is feel. The way that it fits in your hand is very important. Is it ergonomic? Does the rim wall, and by that I mean, does this inside wall right along here, is that 90 degrees or is it more open face? When it's more open, it's actually really difficult to throw a two-finger sidearm grip because it slips out. So you actually the feel of the disc is very important. And not all mid-ranges are created equal. So if you were throwing disc A forehand mid-range and disc B from another company, and although backhand flight might be very similar, disc B might have that 90-degree wall so you can get a nice contact on the rim with your forehand, and disc A might be slightly more open faced. You're not going to get the same results when you throw a sidearm. And that's just because you're not going to get the same consistent pop. And for me, I was so stubborn coming into disc golf, um, coming from an ultimate background. I just was flick everything, right? And in ultimate, everybody was forcing flick, and I was like faking like I had a backhand, so they'd like guard my backhand, and I'd be like psych, and I just was like
Right.
launching forehands because it was my main weapon. So when I found disc golf, after playing ultimate for like 2 years at App State, I was like, well, I can get this disc to land pretty much within a 10-meter circle, give or take, either side of the basket every time from this certain range. But everyone else is throwing backhand. So maybe I got to learn backhand too. And I tried, and like I just couldn't say with certainty that I was going to get that disc in that 10-meter circle, but I could forehand. So am I doing it wrong or am I doing it right? And I just was like, oh, you know what? I don't need to learn their way. I'll learn my way. And this was back, but this is '06. So this is before YouTube days. I couldn't go on and be like, hey, what does Paul McBeth do? Paul McBeth didn't exist in disc golf yet. It was basically an online article. Ken Climo talked about throwing putters like they were bricks. That was the resource that I had available to me. So like, I don't know where to go get sidearm advice. Like there wasn't any. So I was like, you know what, dude? I'm going to develop this. I'm going to see what it turns into. And so that meant if I needed a disc to go straight, I had to have a straight disc. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what the stability would be. We didn't have flight numbers. This is before numbers came out. This is all PFN. And so I was like, well, I need something to go straight, but I need it to be slower than my drivers. So I'll just flick this. That disc ended up initially being a Ching DX Rock, right? Which is like a very sought after run of flat stamped DX rocks. Um, and then I was like, okay, I'm now with Discraft. Buzzes go straight. Meteors, I can throw hyzer and they'll end left. These are all just ways of getting away from me not having as strong of a backhand as I needed to have to compete with people. But I was doing basically what lefties were doing with getting the disc to stand up and turn over. I was just doing it forehand. And honestly, I couldn't figure out why no one else was doing it. I've seen like the mid-range forehand game was an obvious solution to like playing and competing and being good in North Carolina. We've got a lot of like tight landing zones. It's not a big premium on distance. It's more about landing zones and just staying away from that first tree. And so I don't know. I just kind of figured it out on my own, and I didn't realize I was doing anything that was revolutionary or new or anything like that. It was just I knew I could do this. It would get me from point A to point B relatively consistently, and that was good enough for me, man.
So I'm going to. You just brought something up that's making me reevaluate something that I've been teaching, which is these days that doesn't happen very often. I've been doing this a long time, so I'm open to learning, but I'm getting this stuff figured out, the teaching part. But I've always taught that there's no such thing as a backhand disc or a sidearm disc. It's just about is a clockwise spin or counterclockwise spin. If it's a destroyer on your with your backhand, if there's a mirror image of that hole, it's a destroyer sidearm. I mean, you're just reversing the spin, reversing the flight, which is true. That's a fact. However, what you're saying about the wall of the disc, meaning that there are some discs in your bag that when gripped sidearm might not be a mirror image result, even with the same spin and speed, then there may be some variety in there. That actually makes a lot of sense, and I hadn't really been teaching that. I'm gonna really think that one through, and I'll tell people that it came from you because that's super smart.
Appreciate that. I didn't think it was that way. I didn't think it was that way when I was with Discraft. It seemed like the inside walls were all consistently pretty flat. I didn't have an issue throwing a backhand or forehand with any of their discs.
Right.
When I went to Prodigy, I threw the M4 for the mid range really well, but all the other mid ranges as they rolled out didn't come out of my grip the same. And I genuinely took it on myself to figure out, did I just suddenly get worse? Something that I've done consistently for 5 years, I can't do it anymore. Every single flick that I threw was fluttering, and I was like, okay, I got to get more spin. I got to reduce that flutter by making more spin. But then I realized I just wasn't getting the same release contact point, and so it just wasn't coming out of my grip the same anymore. I tried changing my grip, and I would never had changed my grip before, and it just wasn't netting results. So what I had to do was essentially go with faster discs because the drivers were all great. I could throw the drivers very, very controlled. They'd come out exactly how I wanted them to, but I'd have to throw them softer. And so I had to use fairway drivers or even distance drivers that were beat up for shots that I had literally just thrown the zone on for a number of years, and like figured out that this was my game. Prodigy comes along, an amazing opportunity, no regrets at all with joining Prodigy, but the discs literally were different, and I didn't think I definitely thought that it was always just the Archer, and it is. to a certain degree. It is a little bit about the arrow, and it has to be because each company is different. They have different plastic suppliers. They have different molding practices, and the shapes of the discs are just different. And with that forehand grip, when we get our finger in that rim, it is so important that that rim is torque resistant. Some discs are, and some discs aren't. And it's not at all about being understable or overstable. It's all about that shoulder. It's all about the angle of that rim, and it's all about the plastic connecting with your grip. If those things don't align, I can't imagine feeling comfortable with releasing the same shot over and over again and trusting it when it counts.
Yeah, and ironically, when I was developing the whole idea of it, there's no such thing as a sidearm disc, and preaching that was when I was throwing discraft. And your experience with discraft is the rim didn't affect things. So just
Not for me.
my ignorance as to other manufacturers means that I shouldn't state that as a rule. I should leave the caveat to people that, if it doesn't fly. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't be throwing putters in mid range. It just means if you have a putter in mid range that isn't flying well sidearm, experiment with a different putter or mid range.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's an
God.
important thing to give each disc a field test. I mean, like, it's a great thing about going to your local disc golf shop as opposed to buying everything online. And if you've gone to a shop or you felt one of your friends' discs in their bag and this is something that I like, then go ahead and buy one online. But I mean, I definitely think that each disc connects with each person differently. We all have different size hands, the width of our finger, the length of our finger. What works for me might not be comfortable for you. And so everybody should be very familiar with what they're getting so they, can know what to expect.
God, that's really, really good stuff. No, that's
Me,
cool.
me use my tinker. Me have brain too.
Yeah. And the manufacturers love us because we basically just said, hey, try a bunch of discs to find one. But
well, I mean, yeah, if you want like a good solution for an alternative to something that you don't like, that's another brand, send it, say, hey, I'm trying this brand, this, what's an Innova alternative? And I can, point you in the right direction. But sometimes Innova might not have the best solution for a certain thing. And, I'm going to give you the best possible answer I can. But,
yeah,
like it's not like one of the Innova's things is they aren't trying to match what Discraft or Latitude or Dynamic Discs or any of those other companies are doing. Innova wants to set the mold, and so if someone beats them to the punch, they're not rushing to catch up. Did you ever see Innova release one of those junior discs, those like half minis?
mm-mm.
They didn't, even though that made a lot of money for Discraft. Innova was like, we're not interested. This is, like whatever. You got congratulations, make a lot of money off of that. And like if they don't come up with it themselves, they're not trying to just like do something because someone else does it. They want to have molds that fit for their players' needs. And so like I have some things that I'm actually working with Innova on that I need some things that right now we don't make. And I think it would be a good thing for the market. So hopefully, I'm not going to get any more into it, but if that works out, I think it'd be a cool thing to have players who are in the know, who are in the scene, that know what things are necessary as the game continues to evolve, to kind of deliver feedback and help them make the best possible product for the disc golf world.
I do think players being involved in the manufacturing process is smart, especially players that are. I mean, there's players who are good, but there's also players who are more cerebral than others. I think there's a bunch of players that they're great, and I'm not sure if they even know why. And there's also hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they might be more fun because they're not overthinking it, but they're also
honestly
players.
That's an advantage sometimes, and it.
Yeah. But
it.
no, I mean, God, it's already good stuff, man. I'm super happy. All right, so I met you. We went to Rocky Mount. I think you did lose to Nate there, but then you won the next tournament I was at with you. So the first three tournaments I went to out on tour that you were at, you got first, tied for first. I think you're right, and then you won. You won the Memorial. And I was standing next to you on hole 18 when Paul beat you, everyone thought, because you had left yourself about a 40-ish footer, but more important, how far?
It's about 65, 70.
Was it 65 or 70?
Yeah.
Okay. I will absolutely believe you because I'm sure this is imprinted as one of the highlights of your career. But I thought that what was equally important, because I was already become a friend of yours at this point, and I was rooting for you. I was standing right behind you, and you had a right to left wind. And as a right-handed putter, that right to left wind also reduces your chances of making that shot by 70% or something. So
Especially when the slope is right to left going towards water. And that
right.
was also in my thought was,
So
you know, like,
because you had to putt an Anheuser putt. Well, no, you had a couple things. So Paul had about a 25 footer that he's probably going to make, but you could not gun it and go 35 feet long because then if you missed a comeback putt, he lays up his 25 footer. So at the very least, you had to leave a putt that forced him to make a 25 footer. I mean, yeah, we know Paul's probably going to make it, but
right.
it's not a gimme.
That was match play in my mind. Whenever you step up to a putt like that, the other person has already made the putt. So in my mind, Paul has already made this putt.
So you
That
were
being said, I mean, it wasn't like I was running at it full steam. I was trying to be like smart guy, like go for it. But like in my mind, there was like a 97% chance that he's already made this putt.
yeah,
That was my mindset.
well, I guess when I saw the Anheuser putt with the right to left wind, that told me that you weren't playing doubles, that you were still aware of the comeback putt.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Then you threw it in.
Yeah, the chains got right in the middle of the flight path and caught it. It was sick. It
Yeah.
was absolute. There has never been a moment in my life where I have felt what I felt at that moment. And I've been on some really great teams in my life. Grew up playing soccer for a team that went undefeated for 2 years. I played basketball for a team that was third in the state my senior year. We made a deep playoff run in the states. Um, I've been a part of some championship teams before, and I'd won the amateur worlds to that point, and I won the Vibram Open. So those are big events in disc golf, and all of them had great feeling. But the surge of energy, there's no other way to put it. The surge of energy that I got when that thing was like, the last like 20% of the flight, when I was like, that thing's flattening out and that's going into heart. And when it caught it and it sat down, and it was no longer like, you can lose this. This is like, Paul can lose this. You have already done everything. Nobody can possibly beat you unless we go to this playoff, but it doesn't even matter. At that point, I had won 100%. This is the best player in the world on the course he hardly ever loses at. In front of all these fans, I put on a great show. I was on lead card the entire week. I did not go out of bounds at the Memorial, which has never been done before. I don't think it would ever be done again. I mean, that's just like all these things were like, I'd won this, I won this, I won this. I was a winner. And that feeling of like conquering everything at that moment, just boom, my whole body like chills. All my hair was standing on end. And like I had the stupidest celebration of my life after a putt. I just threw my hands up and I was walking towards the basket like this. And like I didn't realize how long my hands were up until like I watched a highlight of it afterwards. And I was like, what are you doing? Put your hands down and go get the disc out of the basket. But I didn't know that was not me at that time. That was somebody else that was just in this complete euphoric moment. And I mean, honest to God, that moment would not have been as special if Paul hadn't made his putt. And after my celebration and the crowd like went crazy and then they finally died down, there was still that buzz in the air that Paul still had to step up and make his putt. And his putt was outside the circle. I don't want to say it was 25 feet. He had to work for it. It was between 35 and 40 feet. So it was not a gimme by any means. And he had an even more downhill putt, but it didn't really matter if he missed because he knew that the stakes were miss, you lose, make it,
Right.
you go to playoff. But he jams it. And when he jams it, he's already running for the basket as it's out of his hands. And as soon as it goes in, he turns and double finger points right back at me like, I see you, dude. Let's keep going with this. And that moment brings me chills. Like right now, I've got goosebumps thinking about that moment because that camaraderie between us was so high and with so much respect for each other's game at that point that it was just like, had I won because he missed, it wouldn't feel as special as he connected, I connected, the crowd was there, they were involved, and we go to a playoff, baby. And it was just like everything came together, and it's just one of those days I just absolutely will never forget for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I was standing right there. I mean, I was behind you. I remember being directly in line because I knew which way the wind was blowing when you were putting. So that was,
Right.
but it's one of those things where like you might know it's a hard putt, but I knew how hard it was. And that situation and but with that wind, I'm telling you, you can't overstate the wind was that was big deal. I mean, Paul had basically more or less a tailwind putt, not to discredit what he did, but he was
Yes.
putting down with that tailwind. You were putting with a left to right. So
It's
then,
a
in
the
what happened?
scenario is the scenario is McBeth in that situation every single time in his career. What happens? He prevails. He's down a stroke going into the last hole at the European Open to Greg Barsby, who's led the tournament for 71 holes. Barsby goes out of bounds off the tee shot, goes out of bounds on the approach, makes an epic putt for 5. McBeth birdie threes it, wins the tournament. Going down seven strokes back of Ricky with like 6 holes left in the round and a final 9 to go at the 2014 Worlds. 7 strokes back, claws himself back, goes to a playoff, epic playoff. Paul wins. Like this story has repeated itself over and over and over again. So like Paul finds himself in that position because that's just who he is. He never gives up. He keeps battling. But the thing is with the opponents, he kind of has that Tiger effect on them. Like the Tiger effect that he had early 2000s, his competitors were just like, I don't know what to do. Oh, out of bounds. Like they just kind of fold under the pressure. And I'm not going to say that I expected myself to fold under the pressure, but I didn't think that like if I were a betting man, I wasn't going to bet on Jeremy Koling going into that situation with McBeth and all those things that were lined up. I mean, honestly, it was just I don't know. It was something else happened that day that I'm glad it doesn't happen often because I don't think I would have the same feeling and memory about it. Like if Paul McBeth, I'm sure he has got some events, and we were just talking about him, so might as well keep it on him. When you talk about a certain win, I don't think that he can connect with any one win and feel these feelings that I have right now. Like I'm not gonna say that I don't wish I had like 7 or 8 more titles on my under my belt, but like I don't know if anything will ever feel quite that special. I mean, not honestly, not even the USDGC, because frankly, that was a little bit tarnished with the last round being canceled and not going out there and having like that one shining moment, walk up hole 18 and winning that way. But anyways,
No, that makes total sense. I get it. So, for those people that aren't aware, what happened in the playoff?
well, McBeth had shot the best final round between us two, so he had the tee box first, and I kind of felt a little bit like, no, I mean, I felt like the momentum was on my side the whole way because I already felt like I had won. You know, anytime McBeth goes into a situation where he's in a playoff with somebody, it's his to lose because he's the one who's expected to win. And so I already felt like I was the winner in that situation. The momentum was on my side, and I had the advantage of being able to see what he did first. He goes straight at it with a Thunderbird, and it was a little bit early out of his hand, and it ends up hyzering left of the basket, and it gets one skip, and it's going to go out of bounds. There's that little wall there. If you don't know what hole one the memorial is at Fountain Hills, it's a 370-foot clearance over water to a basket that's just on barely over the wall on the other side. And Paul just goes left of the basket, and it's skipping back towards the water. And um, there's a spotter over there because if any disc comes and hits the wall, they have a rule that you get to advance it all the way to that spot. So they have to have a spotter pretty much there on the wall to make sure that it does or does not touch. And that disc goes right at the spotter's feet. And in my head, I was like, this disc is going to hit the spotter's foot and it's going to stay in bounds. I am going to lose my mind and it's going to be a distraction. It's going to immediately take this momentum away from me. That's all these things are going through my head. and the spotter was in the worst possible spot. The disc is coming right at his feet, and a last second he does this like very strange kind of uncoordinated dance, but he jumps over it and he just narrowly avoids kicking Paul's disc. So the disc does go out of bounds. Now he's in the circle, probably 28 feet or something like that away. But now the situation is if I two this hole, it's over. There's nothing he can do. And so immediately I was able to calm myself, put myself back in that moment. I threw a D1 Spikeiser. I had a very good game plan in that hole. I had a very good spot in the background. There's this palm tree that I like to visualize, landing at that palm tree, which is about 45 feet right and high of the hole. Try to land it there, and on that slope, it kind of just nestles back towards the basket. And the disc came out true. The distance felt right, and it ended up circling the basket about 12 feet away. So it was parked, and tournament was over. Get up to the line, Paul misses his putt, and like I was thinking to myself, like, do I just lay up from 12 feet? And I was like, you know what? I felt like laying up that putt, even though it nets me the championship, has no effect on anything else. I felt like that was not the right play. So I went for the putt and made it. I mean, it's 12 feet. It's not like some sort of courageous moment in my life, but like I didn't want to win. I wanted to win with a birdie, damn it. I didn't want to win on a par. I wanted to stick that birdie putt in there and go out like a champion. And that's what happened that day.
So we're very similar, but we're not identical. I would have laid it up. Because
I think it's probably the right call.
That's hey, if first place was $1 million and second place was $300, do you lay that one up?
You know, when I won that tournament that year, it was 5,000 for first place, and to me that was about $1 million. So it didn't make a difference to me at all.
No,
honestly, the money to me was like you're talking to the richest person in disc golf, and like I'm not going to go up to him and be, hey man, can we split? Like I need the money for gas. Like I was like, dude, this guy's not trying to split. He's trying to win a title. He doesn't care. Like I could say split, he could say yes, but I'm not going to try to disrespect this dude by saying this. I just want to go up there and I want to try to beat this fool, like,
yeah.
So I don't know. The one last thing I'll say about that day, about the final putt before we went to the playoff, that nobody really knows about. I've shared it before somewhere, but I don't know where it was. But my caddy was my buddy Richard Kielander from Sweden, and he and I have a goofy relationship. I stepped up to that last putt right before I got to my lie. I held up sidearm grip with my M4, and I was like, should I just rip it in there? He said, yeah, good call. Whoa, no, that's stupid. You should throw a thumber. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So I grabbed the thumber disc for a second. I looked at him and I was like, no, it's not a good idea. It's like, no, you should probably try to putt it in there. And I was like, yeah, good call. But that interaction happened right before I stepped up to my putt. And if you watch any video of it, I mean, I'm only on my lie for about like 5 or 6 seconds before that thing is released. So like that joke and that kind of mentality of being like silly, but still somehow connected to that moment was currently going through my head as that putt left my hand. So I think that if anyone could appreciate that, Scott Stokely, you would be the person to understand what that's like.
I teach all the time that if you play better in practice or better at league night than you do at tournaments, which is 90-something% of players, then the key to tournaments is to try to replicate what you do when you're playing better. And if you practice, if that's how you play better by joking and goofing around, then why would you not do that in a tournament? So like, I think that would be an incredibly smart way to take the edge off of that putt. Because the worst thing you want to hear is, okay, Jeremy, you have to make this putt. You realize if you miss this putt, with everybody watching you, you'll never live this down, Jeremy.
Right?
Imagine how stupid it's going to look if you miss, Jeremy. $5,000, Koling. Like,
so that's the thing is like you have to have, if you're going to have a caddy, for a long time, if somebody ever said, hey, Jeremy, I want a caddy for you, will you let me caddy? The answer was yes. Okay. The burden of taking this off my back, sure. But the problem is that like a caddy is a very important person to have with you, not just for the physical stuff, but because they need to be an emotional support. If they don't understand you, your personality, and what makes you work well and perform at your best, then they are only going to be a deterrent. And so now, like we're not really in a time of caddies anyways, with phase one being at most events. But like, if we fast forward to the future when caddies are like, well, we're able to have those again, it, I'm not going to say yes. I mean, hopefully I'll have Jules with me and she can be there with me. But like, it's also like a situation where you need somebody that you can vibe with. And I don't think many people would be able to have the confidence to make a joke with me, stepping up to what they would obviously know is be one of the most
Mhm.
important putts they could ever imagine. And that takes a really strong amount of confidence and a good repertoire with somebody to be able to allow yourself to go there, you know.
A little bit off topic, but I just saw something I loved, and it was exactly what I thought. Where I went, man, that took some balls to have the confidence to joke in a situation. Do you know Ezra?
Of course.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. I mean, I've seen him, obviously, right? But I don't know much about him. But he's new to Discraft, and based on where his rating is and where he plays, I mean, he's not a 1040 person who can just kind of get away with stuff, or at least he doesn't know. Like, so you would think you'd kind of want to be a little bit cautious with what you say in that position, right?
Okay.
And so he did an in the bag video where he in so many words, basically, do you know what I'm talking about?
The
Where
Raptor thing.
yeah, he pulls out the disc and says, "Yeah, I don't really like this, but I have to throw it." I was
It's in
like,
my Paul put it in my contract that I have to throw these, so I guess
yeah,
we'll just make it work. Like, that's
yeah.
good stuff.
I messaged him. I'm scheduled to do a podcast with him because I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like in his
Yeah.
position to actually be like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm like, that's the personality that I like. It's amazing.
I actually asked Paul about that. I asked him if he was aware that he was going to make that joke, and he had no idea. So I like that too, because when I first saw that, I thought that it might have been like a scripted little joke, like Ezra, messaged Paul first and it's like, "Hey, dude, I'm just going to burn you a little bit, like be prepared for it." Nope, like he just went out of his way and he did it, and so yeah, that's good stuff because yeah, he's still, next year, even though he was, he toured around this year and he definitely made a name for himself, like he's still kind of in his rookie season. So like, like a rookie kind of going after a veteran like that, it takes some balls.
It is. I admired it. He's going to be on my podcast. I think.
Cool.
Yeah, every time I like did anything with any of the players, like, hey, did Paul know you were gonna do that, make that? And I'm like, no, it's way funnier if they don't know. Hey, here's what I want to do. I'm trying to keep the podcast a reasonable amount of time. I would
Possible.
love to just call this Jeremy Koling Part 1, and then would you be willing to get back together in a couple of weeks? I still want to talk for a little bit, but instead of trying to cover a bunch of things in like the next 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Can we revisit this in the near future?
You keep sending those $500 checks. I can do this as many times as you want.
Oh, it'll be 1,000 next time.
Well, it should be because that'll be 2 of these. So yeah, you can
So
just hold the check off till next time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we're not cutting this short, but so I mean, there's a story I want to ask you about, and we're kind of all over the place.
Okay.
But one of the things about you that people love, and it's not just you and disc golf, it's something that everybody likes about other people. So when people don't take themselves too seriously and they're willing to laugh at themselves. And you've been willing to take the practical jokes and own them.
Where are we going with this?
I
Where are
just
we going with this?
I just showed the spoons video to my girlfriend tonight.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
That's not where we're going with this.
Dude, you have personally like 4 of these on me. So like the spoons video, I was not expecting you to bring that up. But yeah, let's keep on trucking, baby. Come on, bring it.
All right. So the reason I want to bring this up now is because I've only heard briefly from your side of this. I haven't heard the whole story yet.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but what I want to do is I want to share the first half of what happened at the Yetter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to share the joke, but then I want to tell me and everybody else, but I want to know the full story of your
Okay.
side. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So
Do
I'm
you
going
want
to
my
tell,
side? You're going to tell the story first?
well, let me tell the story about what I did, but then I'm going to leave it with the fallout from it.
Okay. All right.
All right. So and I'll try to make it brief, but so basically, you were kind enough to to invite me, my partner, to stay with you at your friend Mike Carmen's house at the tournament.
Correct. Yeah.
Relevant to the story, this all started because you were nice enough to say, "Hey, you need a place to stay. We got a spare room."
That is an important part of the story. Yes.
It's a bit ironic because it's all, yeah. So you're super cool. And so we stayed with you, and then on Saturday night, you said to me, you said, "Hey, if I don't win, I got a 9-hour drive home in the morning. If I don't win tomorrow, is it okay? They won't care if I missed the award ceremony, right?" And I'm like, no, of course not. If you don't win, make sure you thank everybody, but you can get out of there. Not a big deal. But several more times during the evening, out of the blue, you'd say, are you sure they're going to be okay with this? Which told me that you were generally concerned with how it would look if you left early. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, yeah, totally not a big deal.
This is why everyone never be vulnerable. Always hold everything inside and never say anything about the way you feel. Keep it in there and take that key, break it, and swallow it. And never ever let anyone see your true colors.
That's exactly right. This is why men died like 7 years before women, because what's the expression? Because we're not allowed to say that puppies are cute. So you were worried about it. Well, the next day, Andrew Fish played really well. You played well too. You shot like 1030 all weekend, but Andrew won. And
first
so
first A tier win for Andrew Fish.
Yeah,
congrats.
He's such a good golfer.
Yeah, really, really good.
And so you took off and left for your 7-hour drive home. And I knew that you were worried about leaving early. So when I was at the awards ceremony,
which you won, by the way. Congratulations for winning.
Thank you. I won the Masters division, the old person division. And so I
used your spotlight.
What?
You used your spotlight for
I did. I'm at the center room. And I asked everybody, hey, do you guys want to play a joke on Jeremy? And everybody's like, heck yeah, that'd be fun.
Yes. Everyone responded resoundingly loud. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, we'll post the videos of this because this is all on video. So I told everybody that about you not wanting to leave early. You were afraid that it was going to look bad. You didn't want to upset anybody. And I said, I thought it'd be really funny if like every 10 minutes, a different person texted you and about how rude it was for you to leave early. So what I did is I had a whole stack of papers with your phone number and a time on each of them because I didn't want them all to come at once. And I handed them out to everybody at the award ceremony. The idea was about every 10 minutes or so, somebody would text you and tell you how disappointed they were that you would do this. And then if you write them back, to just not respond. And then I went on.
They did a good job of that. They did a really good job of that.
I know. Usually you can't pull off practical jokes that involve a lot of people, but they did a good job. So then I blocked you on Facebook. And then I went on Facebook and I told everybody exactly what I did. And I said, you need to please go start posting to Jeremy's Facebook wall that you heard what he did at the Yetter and how you expected more out of a pro. Anyways, that's where we left it, right? Everybody's going to be messaging you on the drive home. So I then texted you and I said, dude, I can't believe you left early. I was totally joking. You can't do that. And you wrote back all pissed off and defensive, right? You're like, dude, I don't see what the problem is, right? You just, okay. So then you start driving home and then I get a text from you that says, dude, call me now. And I'm like, I'm not going to call you, right? Obviously. But I was laughing because I knew it was happening. And then all of a sudden, Mike Carmen's phone rings. And Mike says, oh, hey, Jeremy's calling. He grabs his phone. I go, dude, don't answer it. Maybe he'll leave us a voicemail. And you did. So I want to know what happened on the drive home. I've never heard the whole story from you.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for bringing me back down this wonderful journey of emotion. So splendid way to use your time. You know, like the great length that you go to mess with other people is unmatched in this sport. All right, so here's my perspective. Um, let's go back. Okay, I have always looked at players meetings and tournament award ceremonies as very respected times of a tournament. The only players meetings I ever miss, there's a very good reason for it, but I usually try to follow up and make sure that I didn't miss anything important, and also show the tournament director the respect of all the work they go through to run an event. And I feel the same way at the award ceremony. And a bit of that goes back to certain players of mine that were, like people I looked up to, great champions in our sport. I don't want to say any names, but like his name rhymes with Sherry Schmaltz. You know, like a player like somebody that rhymes with that wouldn't show up for the players meeting when would get second. And I just thought that that was disrespectful. I have a different perspective on it now, and I get it. It's not. I mean, like the guy has been playing for 2 decades at that point. This was not the World Championships. This is not like we need to like shake everyone's hand at every single event. It's not that. It loses some of that feeling the more comfortable you are. I think the more tournaments you play. I still think it's very important to show the tournament directors and the staff respect. Absolutely. But at that time, I was still under that mindset. I did not want to seem like I was disrespectful. Yes, but
And we're okay. So you say players meeting, you mean the award ceremony?
yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, the award ceremony. I mean, like I want to be at the players meeting also, but the award ceremony, I feel like, and unless you have some extenuating circumstance, you should be there. And it's not just important for you, but it's also important for the fans because we are a very approachable sport. But it's also important for your sponsors. You represent that company. You should be there with your logo, with their logos. If they're supporting you, you should support them and be present. It's a great way to shake hands and grow the
Yeah.
sport. And so I felt that way strongly at the time. And so, knowing that I would either have to wait, I knew that we were going to be the first card in. I knew that from the very beginning. That's a 27 hole course. It took 5 hours to play one of those rounds. And, the day before when we played the same course, the difference between first card and last card coming in was something like an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's a crazy differential in time. And then they have to set up the awards and then do the award ceremony. So I was looking like not leaving for another 3+ hours if I had stayed around. So I knew that if I got first place, I'm definitely just going to stay in Pennsylvania overnight, and I'll just gonna have to, wake up the next morning and drive down early. But if I didn't win, I wanted to get back home and sleep in my own bed. It was important to me. So I had this conundrum. And so I definitely was like, who am I going to ask? Well, I'm staying with Scott Stokely. This guy's played more tournaments than this guy has like decided to not play more tournaments than I have played. You know what I'm saying? Like this guy's been around for a really long time. He's got great perspective on this. So of course, what do? I asked the great Scott Stokely what he would do in this situation. Um, that was a mistake that I figured out later because he exploited me and my vulnerability. And so, no, it was actually not a mistake. It ended up being a wonderful thing because I learned a lot about you and to guard myself around you, big time. No, in the moment, in my terror of driving home from, let's say, like drive hour 2 to drive hour 4, maybe about a 2-hour period of time where I'm like kind of losing my shit, was kind of like trying to figure out how damage control was essentially my main thought. Like, I've got a safe face. This seems like this is getting viral somehow. I don't know why it's getting viral, how it's getting viral, or any of this, but I have done something wrong and I've pissed some people off. And normally I feel like these things go unnoticed. This time it didn't. So
What
shit, like
what
I'm in trouble.
what are the messages saying?
Oh, like my kid really wanted to meet you. We were looking forward to shaking your hand, getting an autograph. Oh, like whoever you like assigned to these time slots,
Oh my God.
they took their moment in the sun and they went for it, man. They sent some really personal messages. Like I was getting messages that were like longer than the screen. I had to scroll to read some of these messages, Scott. And like I was getting these messages and I was like, "Oh, oh no. Oh, like what do I do? Oh God." So like I immediately called like Ulibarri, because Ulibarri is a great example for a lot of young players on like respect for tournament directors. And like I was like explaining the situation to him and he was like, "Dude, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. It looks like you messed up." And I'm like, really? And like I thought, like in hindsight, I thought he was in on it, when I found out it was all a gag, because like I thought he would have been like, "Dude, who cares?" And maybe he did kind of say that, but who cares? But it looks like people are upset, so you got to apologize for it. And so I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. So like I was like gonna get home and like write down something. And anyways, I was making phone calls left and right. Like you said, I was contacting you. I was contacting Mike. I contacted like people at the tournament that weren't you and Mike. Like I was trying to figure out how I could get you on the phone and ask you what happened, because I knew you were either, I had a slight suspicion that you were involved, but the fact that it kept coming from random people, and it was going to my Facebook Messenger, it was going to my cell phone, it was going to these other places that weren't like these people were hunting me down, Scott, to berate me for my lack of professionalism. Dude, before Prodigy, when in my discraft days, and like up until that point where I joined Prodigy, disc golf for me was a way for me to like find my place in the world, and I needed to be good at disc golf. So I really didn't care about being diplomatic. I didn't really care about the professional side. I wanted to be the best disc golfer, and I had a fire and I had a temper that I couldn't control, and I had that reputation. Going into Prodigy, I realized there was a spotlight on me and 10 other players, and in a way that had never been a spotlight on any other disc golfer before. And I decided at that moment I wanted to try whatever I could to control myself as a professional and my outward appearance to the world. I was more focused on what I put out there on social media and my appearances. Like I was just more aware of it because it was important to me. It was a special thing that the one thing I could control is what I put out there. And I had a deep respect for that. So this one moment, all my efforts were just crashing down. Like you are just a jerk. Like all you care about is yourself. And like, so I had a lot of things going on in my
My
mind on
kid
that
wanted
drive home.
you. I didn't
Dude,
know.
I had like three of those, dude. I had like my kid's your biggest fan, or was, like like, oh my God, what, I'll send your kid a signed disc. I'll send him a basket. I don't care, just like me. I don't know. Like I don't know. It was bad. And then when you guys called me laughing at the top of your lungs, it was like part relief and a lot of frustration still, but then like it wasn't long before I could laugh at it. But man, that was a hell of a day. That was a hell of a day. Oh
So
my gosh.
so you'll be, I hopefully pleased to know you had a 9 hour drive,
Yeah.
and I was staying with Mike, and after about 2 hours, I actually said to him, I go, I think this is going to start not being funny pretty soon.
Yeah.
And so I pulled the plug in about 2 hours. By the way, I have tears coming down my eyes. I hear my kid's hero, and he wanted to meet you.
Dude, legitimately, like
Wow.
I lost like 30 fans, I thought, that day. Like all of a sudden these people I didn't know existed were like my biggest fan in the world. And like, "Oh, Jerem, like I've been noticing like you've been so great at these things, but like, man, like your reputation took a hit today when you left the tournament early. Like, get over yourself. Like, who cares? You lost. Like, stick around and shake the fans' hands." Like, what? Who has ever got these messages before? The first one that came in, like I was so confused. I was like, okay, whatever. And the second one comes in, I'm like, what? 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 Dude, it was wild. It was so
Wow.
good. I actually, I've wondered many times since then, where would you put that on your list of practical jokes? Because I can't even imagine all the things you've done or pranks that you've pulled. But like, where does that land on your list?
that actually might be the best one, in the sense, like, all it took is one person to not think it's funny and message you and go, just so you know.
Yeah.
Like, so the chances of that one getting pulled off were like 1 in 10.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, when the thing is, I love playing a lot of jokes and pranks. You've never seen me do something mean spirited or harmful.
No.
It's always in fun. And the thing is, from your perspective and anybody's perspective, if someone plays a prank on you and you laugh at yourself, you become more popular and more endearing to people. Like, how you handle
Totally
something,
agree. Yeah.
like, it's good for your brand when
Yeah. Sure.
you know. So like, it was, God, it was just perfect though. Yeah. And
I'm curious if like that, or like when you do a lot of clinics and lessons, right? Like, so you have maybe more than any other player in disc golf ever.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and so when I think about like you pretending like you know what the hell you're talking about, that is like a semi small prank to each one of your lessons. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's impressive that you would think that
I
on the
know.
top of this list, you've done tens of thousands of pranks.
Yeah, and convincing everybody that I know how to teach disc golf. I know,
I know,
but they
it's
don't. But
crazy.
the thing is, they don't realize it till the next day, till after I'm left, that everything I teach them doesn't work,
But you've already got the money in your bank account.
and I'm in another town.
And I'm gone.
No, I love that. And so hey, just one more. I will just, and this is a short one. It's
Please.
not a story to this, but this complete coincidence popped into my Facebook memories today. It was
Me too. Me too, by the way.
you saw it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw it.
And that is all I will share that story just real briefly about you. So we basically, we had a bet on the Super Bowl, and if the Broncos beat the Carolina Panthers,
Right. 2015 season when the Panthers went 15-1 and Broncos weren't nearly as good. But
yes, and the Broncos, well, they beat him in the Super Bowl, and the bet was is that if,
bad too. They smoked
yeah,
us.
well, if the Broncos won,
Yeah.
that you had to read whatever I wrote for you on Facebook.
Yeah.
But you had the rule was you had to play it straight. You couldn't go wink wink. You couldn't say I lost the bet, I have to read this. You had to play it straight.
Right. That's the only way to do it, by the way.
What?
It's the only way to do that. I mean, like,
Well, it's not funny if you don't do it that.
yeah, exactly.
But you still had to actually be the type of person that could have that self-deprecation humor to be able to do that, because and I'll share this link as well, but you read this whole thing, but you didn't read it. You like basically memorized it and made a video about how I was your hero and how handsome I was, and all, like, and it was so over the top that nobody would buy it.
Poorly written is what I would say. It was
Yeah,
very poorly written, but
it was terrible. But the coolest part about it, and I've told everybody this, in fact, I even posted about this today, is that when in the comments, because it got like 13,000 views, and that's 5 years ago. In the comments, people are like, "Did you lose a bet or something?" And your response would be, "No, this is exactly how I feel."
Yeah, this is the truth. This is coming
This
from my
is
heart. You think I would put something out there that wasn't me? Like,
yeah.
what kind of respect do you have for my brand? Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, right?
So,
But all that stuff's great, and it's just we're playing frisbees in a park with our friend.
that's what we're doing, man. We are trying to bring more joy to people who need to be in nature more, who need to be with friends more, who want to be, just more connected with their body. I mean, honestly, like, throwing a disc takes a lot of connection with what your body can do. And what a wonderful thing that we've been able to somehow do this for enough people, that the way that we do it makes people happy, and they want to know, how to do it more or better, or, get more enjoyment out of it. And somehow we found ourselves in a really unique and incredible position to be the people that people go to know more about it. It's pretty special.
It is. So I'm going to let you go now, We are going to do a part 2 because what we did not do, but I just don't want to rush through it. It's too important. We'll do a whole separate video. I want to talk about Jomez. I want to talk about the commentating. I want to talk about the discs you're selling. We didn't do any promotion of the things you're doing, which I want you to have an opportunity to do at length.
There's a lot of that, actually. A lot of that's coming.
So we're going to do, just count on a part 2 coming out shortly. And we'll talk about other fun stuff. I mean, there's more stories and stuff, but I don't want to just gloss over these things you're working on because they're really interesting. I'm aware of some of them. They're really cool. Mm-hmm. And I want to just get into the weeds. So if you'll come back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, tour's starting, things are about to get hectic, but, we can find time for friends, and I can always find time for Scott Stokely, or as
Charlotte in a couple days.
Say what?
I'm going to be in Charlotte in a couple days.
Dude, I mean, you keep talking about this whole sidearm business. Like I told you, dude, I'm available. Like I've got a tournament this weekend, Friday and Saturday. I'm not trying to dodge anything. If you want to do this business and you want to get it filmed and you want to do this on any day besides Friday and Saturday, Saturday and Sunday, and it's before I leave on Thursday, I got 2 little fingers and a wrist that say I can do it better than you and Paul.
All right, and Paul's in.
Of course Paul's in.
And
we're doing nothing to lose. I'm the only person that can lose anything here. No one even knows that you throw sidearms anymore. Paul's
true.
Like down the totem pole. He's like, I can do it too. I'm trying to, and he's just like that little annoying thing. He's like pulling on my shirt. I'm like, just get out of here. Get out of here, Paul. But, he still wants to challenge me. So I guess ipso facto, he wants to challenge, or ipso facto. I've been saying ipso facto my whole life because I just never saw it spelled. So I'm going to stick with it. Ipso facto.
Hey, we're going to outvote Paul on this one because it's going to be driving only. Like, as soon as he starts
putting, he won't do it. He won't do it.
No, it's just a stupid gimmick match.
It is. It is. I totally agree.
So I just say we play 18 holes or 24 holes, closest to the pin, rotate the order, and let's see who throws the most drives closest.
Dude, I'm telling you, he's saying that Nevin's going to take forever. If you guys want to just see who the best forehand is, I say we go to Nevin. We say if you're inside 10 meters or if you're inside circle 2, so if you're inside 66 feet, move on to the next hole. It's all about, no, you still got to putt out, don't you?
No, because it's not
sidearm. Not sidearm. I'm just saying putt. Do we putt?
No, because I want to get a gauge. I want the contest to be who the best sidearm thrower is. If we throw in putting, then it's going to be who can score the best when throwing sidearms. I think it's going to be like I honestly. So we would go into this match with me yielding 4 strokes around to you in putting. Like, why would I get into that match with you? Like, I'm already starting down by 4 strokes. If I can see that you average out putting me by, say, 4 strokes around, I'm a 1,000 rated player. That's about 4 strokes behind where you are just in putting. So, why would I do that? I want to see.
Yeah.
I want to outdrive you with the sidearm and embarrass you in friends and family.
Here's the thing: if we entertain Paul with this little silly you got to putt out forehand, the video itself, regardless of the score, he can take his little, if he happens to hit the lottery and somehow comes out on top, which if we go to Nevin, of course he knows he can't compete with you and I on for that kind of challenge. If he were to somehow have the best score, the only way he would do that is if he actually beat us off the tee. That is a driving course. And that's why I want to go there and not Nevin, where you could just be a better little tomahawk or Scooby putter. Who cares about that? He wants to make that count. I'm saying, dude, it will be evident in the video who has more control and more angles and all those, the whole gamut, if we go to Nevin. But he wants to do Kilborn. So just be ready for that kickback. I accept your challenge. I'm there. You make it happen, and I'm showing up.
Yeah. Hey, so here, let's make this really simple. I'm coming to town, and I'm making a driving only challenge, and you play me on that or not. And then
okay, there you go. It might end up just being you and I, Scott.
And here's how I see it. I see it's driving only, closest to the pin, But if it's a par 4, it's closest to the pin after 2 sides.
Of course, a par 5 closest after 3. Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. And then whatever closest winds up being. And then we gauge. And actually, I even thought then based on who was closest can determine the order of the next hole. Whoever was closest should have to go first on the next hole. Because there are scenarios where 2 people clunk the first tree, the third person can throw it 70 feet and win. That's fair because that's the penalty for. No?
No. Because having a good forehand is also about scrambling. Like, just because you put it 20 feet away, I've got to work on that. I got to okay, now I'm in the woods. I got a tree in the way, and then let's see this. Now I put it under the basket. You missed that putt, and then okay, so you had to do a better drive than me. Does that mean you're better than me here? Yeah, maybe this one time.
Okay, then
I don't know.
How about let's call everything inside circle 2 a gimme. And then I'll play that. Then because I'm if I wanted to play against match putting, then let's just play a regular round. The idea is I want to show you and Barsby and Sexton and Eagle. I want to show all you guys that I have the best sidearm in the world. That's the goal.
Do you believe that?
Very much so.
Oh, yeah. You see, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying you challenge me to a round of disc golf, but you are not allowed to throw a backhand. You are not allowed to throw thumber. You are not allowed to throw a backhand roller. You can only throw forehands or putt. That's what I'm saying. So it's still, you're challenging me to a round of disc golf, but you have to beat me only throwing forehand off the tee, only throwing forehand approach. That's how I see a good, fair forehand challenge. That's just what I see. And because, dude, I'll tell you what, man, there's not much pressure in putting a disc inside circle 2. I think either one of us could do that on every single par 3 there is known to man, pretty much. But there is pressure on making that 25-footer when I'm 30 feet away, that's where I think I understand you might think that you're not quite as good of a putter, but it's still important. I think we got to do the round. You're challenging me to a round of disc golf, but there's a caveat. You cannot throw anything besides forehand. That's my solution.
Then let's play
Think about it.
Let's play a sidearm driving only, and then a sidearm driving and putt. So one's a driving challenge, and then one's a round.
I'm more than fine with playing it one way with your rules and one way with my rules.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And then because, well, we'll see. I mean, it's not like I'm the worst putter in the world. I'm still 1,000. I mean, I'm still 1,010 rated at 51 years old, so I'm still hanging in there.
I've seen you miss putts that some of the best putters in the world have also missed, but I've also seen you miss putts that they wouldn't. But I've seen you miss all kinds of putts.
Tournament.
Is what I'm saying. I totally agree.
One tournament. the one tournament I find out I'm going to be a dad and then play it fine. Anyways.
Scott, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, thanks. We will talk soon. Part 2 will be coming up really soon. Like I said, we got a lot of more stuff to talk about. Thank you very much. Love you to death.
Likewise.
Art. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. See ya.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hey everyone, I'm now on Patreon. Click the link below. Not only keep the free content coming with tutorials, tips, podcasts, etc., but get a bunch of free stuff like live stream Q&As, copy of my book, voting on topics, behind the scenes, bunch of cool stuff. Click the link down below to join.